If you recall from the operator overloading lesson, we can do a stream insertion and extraction operator overload like this. In some class entity, we have these two friends, the stream insertion and extraction operators. And for the parameters, the formal parameters for those, we pass in OStream for the stream insertion operator, and for the extraction operator for the first argument, we have a reference to an IS stream, and I just name those output and input respectively. Again, those are references to an OStream, a reference to an iStream. For the second argument, for the stream insertion operator, we can pass in the entity. So we have a reference to an entity constant. We are not going to modify that. Alright, in the public section, we have the constructor with a default argument of 5, which we will set the member, which is an integer 2, that is in the private section. Okay, so we will assign the argument to the member. Then this is where we go and define those operators that we overload. The stream insertion operator is overloaded, is going to return a reference to an OStream, and as I mentioned, it has these formal parameters. The first formal parameter is a reference to an OStream, okay, an output stream, and then we have a reference to an entity constant. And this is simply going to do this output. We do entity p.member. Because this is a friend, remember, so we don't have to make this member public. We can keep it private, and we don't have to use a getter in this case. We can simply do entity p.member, and then we want to return the output stream again. Again, this returns by reference to an OStream. Then for the stream extraction operator, this of course is going to return by reference to an iStream. First formal parameter is going to be a reference to an iStream, an input stream, and then the formal parameter is going to be a reference to an entity. We actually do want to modify that. We want to do input entity p.member. Okay, so we're going to modify that member. We are going to write to that member. Then we return that input. Then in the main function, I instantiate that entity class. I prompt the user to please enter an integer to store in the entity object. So we do cin entity1. Here we are using the cin stream. Then we can also do cout, okay, and we use that overloaded stream insertion operator here with that particular instance, entity1. So here we enter an integer to store in the entity object. And here we are simply going to print that out again to the console in this case. Alright, so let's see what this does. I build and run. I enter some integer, press enter, and the entity is 55. Alright, so that is a look at operator overloading and streams. So hopefully this gives you a better idea now that you have a better understanding of streams and the input stream and the output stream. Hopefully this gives you a better idea now with the operator overloading with the stream insertion and extraction operators, now that you have worked through the rest of this lesson. But before we end this lecture off, I'd like to leave you with an exercise. I'd like you to add a file to the project and then extract a number from that. So let's call it numbers or integers or something like that. And you want to insert a number from that into the entity object. And then you want to print that out again to another file, maybe to a data file or something like that. You want to print that out or insert that data into that instead of into cout. Alright, so go ahead and give that a try. Think about what's going on when you do this and what is happening when you do this. And when I come back, I will show you my solution. Okay, to begin, we want to make sure about our include. So I include the fstream here for the ifstream and ofstream. And then we also do C standard library for exit if you want to do that instead of using return. The class is going to remain the same as in the previous example, and the same with the definitions here of the insertion and extraction operators. Again, for the formal parameters, those have OS stream and IS stream, references to those. Now if stream is an IS stream. So an input file stream is an input stream, right? Similarly, an output file stream is an output stream. Alright, so in main I'm going to instantiate the entity class as before, but I'm also going to instantiate the if stream, and I'll call that in stream as in previous examples. I'm going to use open here, and then I'll pass in integers.txt. Integers.txt is this file that I have created. I have some integer in here, 247. I check if that has opened successfully and is connected successfully. Then I use inStream, the stream extraction operator, and I pass in entity1. Alright, so whatever is in that integers file should get inserted into entity1, and with that stream extraction operator overloaded, remember that we do input, stream extraction operator, entityp.member. So with that, the value here, 247 in integers.txt, is going to get stored in that private member. I just do some output here, the integer extracted from file, data to be stored in entity object, and then I have an OF stream object, out stream. I'll open some file here, out.txt, just for demonstration purposes. That could also be data.txt or something like that. I check if that is opened successfully. I do a console output, the integer in the entity object is, and then I'm actually going to print that out, and I'm also going to use that same overloaded stream insertion operator on both of the console output stream and also on our out stream object. Alright, so I'm going to print the member out. You can see in the overloaded operator here, we are going to put that data out, entity p.member. We have a constant reference to that entity. We're going to put that out to whatever the output object is. That can be cout or our output file stream, because the output file stream is an output stream. Alright, so a bit of inheritance there. You can get that in the documentation if you read up on the input file and output file streams. Then I close those again, close those files once we are done with those, to disassociate those files with those particular objects. Alright, build and run. We get integer extracted from file, data is to be stored in the entity object. The integer in the entity object is 247, so we know that, as we've seen from the previous example, the stream insertion operator works as we may expect. But what about the file stream? Well, if we inspect that file in the project location, I have out.txt here, we can see that that has written 247 in there. Alright, so that should have been a relatively easy exercise for you. Quite a few things that's going on here. We have to think about the fact that we are using inheritance, because these are output streams and input streams, and also the fact that, if I scroll down here, an input file stream is an input stream. Similarly, an output file stream is an output stream, right? Alright, so again, hopefully this gives you a better understanding. If you had trouble previously with the stream insertion and extraction operators, because we use these input streams and output streams for the formal parameters. And with that, we are going to wrap things up for now. I will see you in the next lecture.